That's actually something which was discussed by Greg Mankiw, who's an economist. I don't actually agree with many of the things that he says, but I think he put his finger on something very important. And he said, you know, engineering is about solving problems. And so engineers are people who try to solve particular problems and do it as best as they can. Whereas science is about trying to understand the mechanisms that underlie things and so forth. And so what he came to the conclusion when he was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors in the US, he came to the conclusion that in fact, macroeconomics as a science has contributed very little to our policy making and so forth, whereas economics, that's economic engineering. And unfortunately, he said, I think all the progress made in economic science has done very little to help with the engineering problems which policymakers are faced with every day. So I think the big difference there is, can you think of economics as a way of solving particular problems? And you find nice solutions and they're best solutions, optimal solutions, or should you think of it as being trying to guide a system in the way you want it to go? And if you think of it in the second way, you probably very quickly stop depending completely on, or even at all, on economic science. So I think that's where the real distinction comes. And we've separated the things far too much, and we should not be happy with pursuing economic science. And it, of course, contains many, many other ideas. Think of Thomas Piketty, who's worked a lot on inequality. And he said, you know, the problem is that economists tend to dress things up mathematically to impress the people they're talking to. And really what's behind much of their reasoning is ideology. So in fact, the idea that we're doing pure science is a myth. It's unreal. We're not doing pure science. It's guided by very particular ideas about what we think should happen, and based on ideology and prejudices, which are not really what we should be doing if we thought of ourselves really as pure scientists. So those economists would like to say, no, we're objective, we're just doing science. That's unreal. It's just not the way it is. And Kaushik Basu, who became the chief economic advisor to the government of India, a well-known theoretical economist beforehand, and then became chief economist at the World Bank, I don't remember in which order, suddenly was faced with very real problems. And he said, you know, you move right away from your desk at the university, thinking about these things in general, to having to look at real problems and faced with political constraints and social constraints. So I think that the idea that economics can be thought of as a pure science, which Walras would have loved, is just unreal.